My fiancé is having an affair with my best friend, and my family helped them hide it. I played dumb until the wedding day, at which point I humiliated them all. After finding the secret chat group they used to hide the affair, I scrolled to the beginning to see when it was formed, and it turns out it was 18 months ago. To be fair, my mother shamed them at first, but just a few days later, she asked my fiancé Alex if he truly loved my best friend Peach. He said he was absolutely sure, but also that he loved me. That's when my half-sister Maria and my half-brother Richard suggested Alex try to convince me to have an open relationship. By the way, Alex and I were already engaged by then. Alex mentioned to everyone that he thought our relationship was too far along to bring that up. Well, my mom, Angie, literally offered to cover for Alex and Peach until he felt ready to talk to me about an open relationship. As I read, all I could think was how on earth my family could betray me like that. Honestly, I wanted to throw up. However, I kept taking screenshot after screenshot the more I read. I found out Peach took my place on our last family trip some time ago, as I had a stomach virus that kept me from going. I can't even imagine what they did on the trip. And the fact that my mother was okay with all of this is what hurts the most, aside from the fact that she'd known for over a year that my fiancé was cheating on me. A few days after discovering it, I had a moment of weakness and ended up sending the screenshots to Alex's parents, explaining everything. They called me back pretty quickly. They asked if Ellie had any solid proof that they were cheating, other than the chat group and the claims about the provocative photos. They asked for more screenshots, and basically, I sent them a good portion of them. Alex's mom made me feel so bad for sending them. She was sobbing and apologizing for her son. Soon, she became inconsolable. Her husband took the phone and asked if there was anything their son could do to make it up to me. I was offended by the question. I asked if I could be frank and told him that unless their son could shrink and disappear, there really wasn't anything he could say. His father said he understood. I asked them to keep it a secret until I had a chance to talk to Alex. They said they would, and we ended the call. For a while, I thought stress vomiting was rare, but it finally happened. Alex heard me vomit and tried to rub my back, but I raised my hand and wiped myself. There was concern in his voice, and he asked if I was okay. For the first time, I saw nothing but red, but I kept my composure. Later that day, I started getting ready for the rehearsal dinner. Alex told me he had some things to take care of before going to the restaurant. I said that was fine and that I'd see him later. Before he left, he said he loved me and that this was one of the days he was excited about. I said, me too. Try not to show too much rage. Once he left, I gathered all the screenshots. For those who don't know, you can schedule text to be sent at a certain time. I decided to do this and send all the screenshots to Peach's entire family, our friend groups, his family, as well as mine. I scheduled the messages to be sent at 1:25 p.m., which would be in the middle of the dinner when people would be giving us gifts. I gathered the black hole of stress that was building inside me and headed to the restaurant. When the time came, my mom and her husband were already there. My mom hugged me, and all I could do was stand still. Feeling her hands on me almost felt like a violation of my spirit. I gave her a quick hug so she wouldn't suspect anything, and we went inside. Guests started arriving, and surprisingly, everyone was on time. Once everyone was gathered, Alex gave a whole speech about how happy he was that everyone could come and how excited he was for our family to join for the next dinner. He mentioned that I was the love of his life and that he was so happy our families were blending and we could be one. I wanted to ask how he dared to say that, but I just gave fake smiles and nodded. Peach basically looked like a clueless dog, smiling and clapping for us. Seeing this in real life is truly astonishing. The lengths people will go to have their cake and eat it too. I could barely eat as the stress was eating away at me. When the scheduled time came, people's phones started buzzing, and Alex and Peach's phones were blowing up. I'd like to admit that, for once, a genuine smile crept onto my face. It was like watching an entire kingdom collapse. The horrified looks on Peach and Alex's faces when they looked at me were pure gold. It's the only positive thing I'll take from that emotional day. My aunt went crazy. She started calling my mom a cruel and ruthless witch, over and over again. My mom quickly checked her phone and saw that I'd sent the screenshots. She started yelling and raging, saying I was really trying to ruin her life again. My grandparents' reaction was the one that hurt me the most because they started yelling at my mom. My grandmother, along with some of our other guests, tried to hold my aunt back as she screamed every insult she could. My grandfather was yelling at my mom that he hadn't raised her that way. At this point, everyone was yelling and crying hysterically. My bridesmaids were insulting Peach, calling her all sorts of names. I hate to admit it, but I enjoyed that. My grandfather then started yelling at Alex. I just started laughing and crying. I had so many emotions that I genuinely think my body didn't know what to do, so it did everything. The tears wouldn't stop flowing. My cousin escorted me out as fast as she could, with Alex chasing after us. He kept calling my name and begging to talk. I ignored him, and my cousin shoved him away from her car so I could get in and leave. She drove me to my aunt's house and told me to stay there and not open the door to anyone. After that chaotic night, I spent the following days in a kind of daze. I couldn't sleep properly, and every time I tried to relax, the sound of messages blowing up on phones echoed in my head. The betrayal from my best friend, my fiancé, and my own family was too heavy to carry alone, but I was about to turn that pain into something much bigger. One thing was certain: they underestimated me. I had always been seen as the nice girl, the one who never caused trouble and preferred to make peace rather than stir up conflict. But this time, it would be different. I began to plan. I didn't just want revenge on Alex and Peach. I wanted to make sure that everyone who contributed to this betrayal paid dearly. I wanted them to feel what it was like to lose everything they valued, just as I had lost everything. The first step was straightforward. I hired a private investigator. I discovered that Alex was not only cheating on me with Peach, but had done so before, including at his workplace. The evidence was solid. Photos, videos, messages, everything. This would come in handy later. Meanwhile, I got closer to my family, pretending to be recovering and seeking support. My mother, who was still furious with me for exposing Alex's betrayal and causing chaos, had no idea what was coming. I also knew that Peach was trying to save her image by blaming Alex and playing the victim. Everything was unfolding exactly as I had planned. Finally, I decided it was time to start the real game. The civil wedding hadn't been officially canceled yet, so technically Alex and I were still about to get married. I made sure to act cordial, scheduling a meeting with him to discuss our future. When we met, he looked visibly uncomfortable, but I was calm. I made sure to dress well and appear composed, showing that I was stronger than ever. Alex seemed surprised and even relieved that I wasn't crying. I've thought about it a lot. I began holding back a smile. I think the wedding can be canceled, but we need to sort out some legal details. He seemed suspicious for a moment, but I convinced him that I was seeking an amicable end. I scheduled another meeting with Alex's lawyer under the pretense of resolving the wedding issues. What Alex didn't know was that I had already prepared a legal bombshell. On the appointed day, I brought all the evidence collected by the investigator and hired the best divorce attorney in town, specialized in reputation destruction. Before we sat down, I revealed everything to Alex. Past betrayals, crimes he committed at work, using company funds to buy gifts for Peach, and the evidence. The shock on his face was indescribable. "This is impossible. How did you find out?" "I always knew, Alex," I said, leaning over the table. "The difference is that now you will pay." But that was just the beginning. I had already contacted the HR department at Alex's company, sending the evidence of embezzlement and misconduct during working hours. He was fired the next day, and soon his entire career began to crumble. Alex had no idea I had friends in high places at that company. Peach, on the other hand, thought she was in the clear, but I saved the best for last. I used the screenshots to destroy her reputation on social media, revealing everything to her social circles. She, who always boasted about her perfect life, suddenly found herself being called a traitor and hypocrite by everyone. What really shattered her was when I discovered she had been involved with another man before Alex and exposed that to her new boyfriend, an influential guy who broke up with her immediately. Now, she was alone, with no support and none of the good reputation she had so cherished. The cherry on top was my own family. My mother, Angie, thought she had escaped unscathed, but I revealed the whole truth to my grandparents, who were highly respected in our community. They were horrified to discover how she had betrayed me and tried to cover it up. They disowned her and cut ties with her. In the end, My mother lost her connection with her own family, and the protective mother facade she had always used crumbled. But there was one more twist. In the following months, Alex tried to rebuild his life. He moved to another city and started working at a smaller company. Everything seemed to be getting back on track for him until he received a court summons. The reason? Embezzlement and fraud at his former company. With the evidence I had already sent to his former employers, Alex had no way to escape. He not only lost his job, but also had to pay an exorbitant amount in fines and legal costs. At the final hearing, I made sure to be present. When Alex saw me in the courtroom, his shock was enough to bring me a satisfaction I hadn't felt in a long time. He had no way out. The destruction was complete. In the end, I came out of it stronger than I ever imagined. Alex and Peach were gone from my life. My family was exposed, and while the pain of betrayal still existed, the taste of successful revenge gave me a new perspective. I was no longer the nice girl everyone manipulated. I was the woman who turned her pain into power, and no one would dare underestimate me again. After the tumultuous legal confrontation, the final blow was about to be delivered. While Alex struggled to cope with the downfall of his career and his ruined reputation, I was prepared to deliver the finishing blow. The final plan involved more than just the destruction of his public life. I wanted to ensure he paid for every act of betrayal and manipulation. As soon as the divorce proceedings were formally initiated, I filed a petition to divide half of the assets Alex had accumulated during our time together. This included the house we bought together, the vehicles, and even a significant portion of his savings and investments. I knew that legally, I was entitled to this, but the emotional impact of this action would be even more devastating for him. Alex's lawyers tried to slow down the process, claiming he was in a precarious financial situation due to the impact of the scandal. However, I had anticipated this strategy and had prepared a solid response to all objections. I proved with documents and evidence that Alex's financial deterioration was exacerbated by his own misconduct and, therefore, he should not benefit from a reduction in his property division obligations. The first day of court for the division of assets was a spectacle. Alex was clearly desperate. The image of a man who had once been powerful and confident, now shrinking in a corner, pleading for mercy, was something I would never forget. When the hearing began, Alex tried to argue that his financial situation was unsustainable and that he could not afford to pay half of the assets I was requesting. He stood up, speaking in an almost pleading tone. "Please, you can't do this. I'm ruined. I never thought you would hit me like this. I thought we could settle this amicably. Can we reach an agreement?" His lawyer tried to minimize the situation, but I was already prepared. I presented evidence that, despite the claims of financial difficulties, Alex still had access to a significant amount of hidden assets. His legal team was left speechless when I showed a series of documents detailing his hidden bank accounts and undeclared investments. In a particularly intense moment, Alex asked me privately to reconsider his situation. He approached me in the courthouse hallway, visibly agitated and with tears in his eyes. "You have to stop this. I'm begging you. You are destroying my life. Please think of everything we had. We don't need this." "Alex," I replied firmly, "there is no going back. You made your choice, and now you have to face the consequences. It's not just about money. It's about justice and what you put me through. You can't just expect me to forget everything." He fell to his knees, begging me to reconsider, but I maintained my stance. It was a bitter yet victorious feeling. Finally, after hours of negotiation and presentation of evidence, the court decided in favor of the equitable division of assets. Alex had to hand over half of everything he owned, and the final decision included a court order for him to pay a substantial amount of alimony. From that moment on, Alex's life took an even darker turn. He tried to find ways to regain some balance, but the combination of financial loss, public scandal, and emotional impact was too much for him. His attempt to start over in another city failed, and he ended up entangling himself in even more complicated situations, resulting in additional legal troubles and mounting debts. Peach, now isolated, suffered a significant downfall in her social and professional life. The revelation of her betrayals made her lose friends and important contacts, and she also faced financial problems, exacerbated by the loss of social support. As for me, I moved forward with a new perspective on life. The experience taught me the importance of standing firm in the face of adversity and turning suffering into strength. The pain I had felt became a source of motivation to rebuild my life from scratch, and I took the lessons I learned to dedicate myself to new opportunities and healthy relationships. Time passed, and the justice I sought became a milestone in my life. My story of struggle and success became an example of resilience and empowerment for many facing similar situations. The sense of power and control I regained allowed me to look back with pride and satisfaction, knowing that despite all the pain and suffering, I had triumphed and reclaimed what was rightfully mine. Now, as I look to the future, I feel renewed and strengthened, free from the shackles of the past and ready to embrace all the new opportunities that lie ahead. Do you think I did the right thing? Leave a comment